One of the things I said to your colleagues today is that winning is not a product, it's a process. The fact of life is that progression towards achievement in life is never a linear process, and sometimes you go backwards to go forwards. Here's the paradox, folks. When you're making mistakes and you're honestly trying to get somewhere, it's actually a sign of progress because you're trying to learn. That's the way it is. Adaptation takes place during the recovery and not during the stimulus.
Hi, Austen Clark. We're here in Glasgow at Network Group. We've just come out of our second day where we've been joined with our keynote speaker, Frank Dick, OBE. Professor as well?
Yeah, for service for coach education and development in Europe from Bulgaria.
From Bulgaria. Here we are. We've got Professor Frank Dick, OBE, who has just presented one of the most uplifting conversations to our community, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Frank, thank you very much for joining us here in Glasgow.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Austen.
So tell us a little bit about the history of Frank Dick. You've been a coach for a few years, I believe, and I think you've coached many different types of teams. It's not just athletics, but that was one of your main course, was it?
Yeah, I think that it started off with athletics. I mean, I fell in love with athletics at school because it was a rugby playing school, and I was kind of a skinny little kid at that point, and I didn't like getting knocked about in the rugby field, and found athletics. I remember the chief coach at that time, Tony Chapman, was somebody I worshipped because he had the answers to everything, you know. My PE teacher didn't have any answers, but he had everything. And I thought one day I'd like to be something like him. And then that's kind of disappeared. But taking that story on, I really believe that life's just a series of crossroads, you know. And it's who you meet in these crossroads and the decisions that you make that define the overall journey. And so a little bit later, I'd graduated from Loughborough. I'd gone to the University of Oregon in Eugene to study with a guy called Bill Bowerman. I don't know if you know Bill, but he was a legendary coach who, with Phil Knight, created Nike.
Oh, really?
So
he was part of that?
Yeah, because he was designing shoes himself.
This chap,
Bill Bowerman, for his athletes, because he didn't like the stuff that the other companies were doing. So, and along came Phil, said, "There's a business in here," and everything moved on from there.
And that's Nike.
Yeah. Anyway, coming back to Tony Chapman, I got up to say goodbye to my mum and dad because I'd been offered a fellowship by a guy called Robert Osborne, the Dean of Faculty in the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. So I'd gone up to say goodbye to my mum and dad, and I'm walking along Princess Street, an Uploadian road in Edinburgh, and who should I see but this national coach that I met all these years ago. And he said, Frank, do you see John Anderson's left the national coach's job? I said, no, I missed that, Tony. I said, why don't you apply for the job? I said, no, Tony, look, I'm saying goodbye to my mum and dad. I'm going to go to Canada now. That's my life. I mean, I've been to Vancouver before. I think the BC is a fantastic state. And he said, why don't you apply for a laugh and just see what happens? And so I did.
It's funny, I've heard these stories before, sort of like these unusual connections. A phrase my father would always say to us, what's meant for you doesn't go by you. But I've always said you've had to put your hat in the ring to be able to find these opportunities.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, if you take that a stage further, I'm now Scottish national coach. I've just had a very good Commonwealth Games in Edmonton. Lots of medals and things, gone really well. I've come home and I knew that the director of coaching's position was going to be appointed in the next year or so. And Harry Wilson, who was Steve Ovette's coach, and I remember Steve Ovette's at Sebco that era, phoned me up and said, Frank, would you like to have dinner with me? And oddly enough, it was actually in this very hotel today.
The Hilton here in Glasgow?
Absolutely here.
No way.
And we sat down for dinner, and he said, you haven't applied for the director's job. And I said, Harry, I've got every committee up here eating out of my hand. It's so easy now. I've got two different challenges, great athletes coming up. and look at, this is Scotland, Harry. You haven't had a look around. This is a great place to be. And he said, how would you like somebody telling you what to do? I said, that's not going to happen. He said, Director of Coaching for the United Kingdom is the Director of Coaching for the United Kingdom, and Scotland's a part of that.
Yes.
Okay, I'll apply for the job, and that happened. So again, it's all crossroads, Austen.
Yeah.
The people you meet there, and what you do with what they say.
Yeah.
That's the key.
So I invited you up. It was a bit of a funny story for herself. I didn't really check my facts, but Frank has this wonderful Scottish lilt, and I always assumed he was from Edinburgh. So I've met Frank before. He's done some fantastic coaching events which I've attended in Edinburgh, and I assumed this man was from Edinburgh. Turns out he's from Bristol.
Well, it's close to Bristol. It's a little village called Zeals, near Mere, and maybe about 30 minutes away from Bristol. So it's quite a distance away, Austen.
So we really appreciate the fact that you flew up from Bristol to Glasgow. But it was fantastic today. Here you are joining us, Network Group. We're a technology organisation, 80 strong plus member companies come together. We're a community, a strong community. What did you make of the community you met today?
It's quite interesting that the first really impactful thing was that there was this willingness to share and exchange knowledge and opinion. People who had the courage to admit when things hadn't gone right, and suddenly realizing in the room that there was so much support around us, and how valuable that is in any organization. And networking has kind of reinforced that at a different level. We understand we're all in the same business. I'd say that's the message I was getting from them. We're all in the same business. And if something's going well for somebody, let's hear about that so that the business itself keeps growing, not just ourselves, but the business itself. It's not unrelated to Alex Ferguson when he was interviewed in the 2013 October Harvard Business Review. The lady who was interviewing him asked him some really mustard questions, and what he did, the first one was, how on earth did you get such sustainable success? 25 years, repeated success after success. And he said, well, it's about the badge, not about the team. And the team can win this week, but it can lose next week. But has it influenced the journey of the badge?
Yeah, let's explore that.
That's really good.
You mentioned this earlier. It's not about the name on the back of the shirt. It's not about the number on the back of the shirt. It's about the badge. And I think you mentioned it's not even the name of the badge. It's actually the badge itself. It's what you are working for, or what you are trying to go to. We often, in this community, we speak about the culture and the goals, and it's the name, may have the name of the organisation, but it's actually what's in behind that name. So could you explain a bit about that?
When you pull on the shirt, you now belong to something, but it belongs to you. There's a sense of ownership to it. There are lots of different stories we could talk about in that, but in the All Blacks rugby team, let's imagine that you've been selected to be number 10 in the team, and you've got a little book. It's black, you can imagine, with ferns on it, and each page is a story about the people who've worn this before you, in chronological sequence all the way through, right? And what they did for the badge that for the All Blacks. And then you come to the back. There's a blank page.
What's a blank page for?
Beautiful for you. This is what are you going to write in this for this book, for this team? Because you belong to something that believes in sustainable excellence, not just one-off stuff. Yeah. And I think clearly it doesn't happen in the network organization, but believe it or not, there are a lot of people who are so accustomed to short-termism in life, they're not actually worried about what happens later, what's going to happen in their lifetime, to get their profits, to get their business and so on. And then they do the job and they leave and they don't care what happens after that. But the idea of the badge is that it is sustainable. You belong to something bigger than yourself. Even bigger when you pull on your national shirt, you know?
Yeah.
And I sometimes have to give a little lecture to, well, in the past, give a lecture to people who have been selected for the team.
Right.
Right. I hope you don't think that you achieved something by putting on that shirt. Right?
Interesting.
You'll only have achieved something when you do something with the shirt.
Interesting. That is a great concept there. So for so many people, it would be the fact that it's the putting on the shirt of your nation is I've achieved something. Actually, you haven't. It's what you're going to prove back.
You've been given the privilege to represent this with distinction in the arena.
Yeah.
And what does distinction mean? Do you have to get a gold medal? No, there's very few people get the gold medals in life out there. But what I want and what I think is the mark of good coaching is, can you deliver the performance of a lifetime out there, right? Wearing this shirt, under that pressure, can you go out there and deliver the performance that you are truly capable of? If you go on there and underperform, you know, you've actually let yourself down. But this is why I used that little clip of film at the beginning.
Which clip? Remind us.
It's a little clip on YouTube.
Was this the little girl that came up and asked you, Mr. Dick, could you train me? That's a fantastic clip.
And it's the value, Austen. It's the value of a short story. Can we? I think one of the greatest skills you can have in life, and you've got it, is to be able to tell stories. Yes. Right. To create an emotional connection. One of the things I didn't actually cover today is about emotional investment. When you go out there, and I had to put my hand up and say to Eddie Jones, I didn't understand this and I got it wrong. The England team in 2019 did a fantastic job in beating the All Blacks in the semi-final. It was a wonderful game of rugby. New Zealand were at their very best, and Eddie'd done a magnificent job in preparing them for that moment, and they destroyed the All Blacks. The next week, it didn't look like the same team competing against the Springboks. And afterwards, I said to Eddie, you know, I got this wrong. You know, we can recover quickly from physical investment. Right, massage, jacuzzis, getting the right food and so on. We can recover quickly from mental investment. Couple of good nights sleep and you can solve all your problems. But recovering from emotional investment is another game altogether. And that does take time. And I don't have any answers to that one, by the way, Austen. I don't know how we crack that. And I'm still waiting for somebody to come up with ideas on it. But I think what we have to bear in mind is that if there is serious emotional investment in something, and that might vary in your team from person to person, by the way, you've got to give that person these people a little bit longer to recover than the others. They won't come up, they won't come back in and deliver again at 100%. They won't do that. Yep. Give them time and then they can come back in again.
Let's go back a little moment. That is fantastic to you explaining that, but there was a part there which I'd like to explore with you. You mentioned about a coach getting the best performance out of their team or out of the person they are coaching. We have a group, we have 85 companies here, 85 principals and others who have a team, and they will be going back tonight or tomorrow to be with their teams, and in some ways they have to be a coach or a mentor and deliver that. What would be something you could resonate with them to say, but when these are some things you had it on the stage there to encourage them to go back and become the coaches which will get the best out of their teams? I think you mentioned earlier about the performance.
Really good question, and not just about my presentation, but what's been learned here, right? There's no Chinese proverb, to teach is to learn twice. And I would ask, in fact, plead with everyone here, when they go back, pick up different key points that they've picked up from this weekend and teach, spend time teaching. This does a number of things. First of all, it makes them beneficiaries of what's been learned up there. But secondly, when you talk about what you've learned, you actually learn it in a different way, right? You're actually explaining your interpretation of what you've just heard. And if you repeat it again after that, so it goes on and on. Every time you stand up and present your thoughts, same with me today. I'll think about things in doing that. I'll have said things today that I haven't said before, always. It'll always happen. And you might think, well, you're old enough, right? You've got so many things to remember. Well, yeah, I get that. And I get that I'm a dinosaur, but I'm still a dinosaur learning, right?
A learning dinosaur.
Yeah,
You're the T-Rex. You're T-Rex of the coaching world.
Yeah. A little aside on that is that, here's my question to you. I'll catch you out now.
Oh, please.
What do the following have in common? A fern, a dragonfly, and lichen.
A fern, dragonfly, and lichen. Well, I think a fern and a lichen are almost a plant-like, and a dragonfly is an insect.
Okay.
Don't know.
They were all around the same time as dinosaurs. They adapted. Dinosaurs didn't.
I think you actually covered that. That was very good. You said that earlier. I want to come on to a question. Is that you spoke earlier about that you'd spent some time with Eddie Jones with the English rugby team, and I believe you took them to, was it Japan? Was that the World Cup that they went to? Tell me a little bit about that, because I think you explained, there was a story there which you told about the rugby team. They had to visualise it at a certain time.
Yeah, I think if we're not careful in life, we can run a business by getting to the end of the year. We've achieved these goals. So what will the goals be for next year? And so you by accident incrementally try to improve. When I met with when Eddie invited me to meet his staff for the first time, it was actually in Richmond, in a hotel in Richmond. There were 25 people around the table, and I asked them, "What are we here for?" And said, "We're aiming to win the World Cup." This was January 2016. We're looking at 2019. What are we here for? We want to win the World Cup, Frank. So what does that look like? Well, we've got to be able to beat the All Blacks, got to be able to beat the Springboks. Said, not a good answer, right? What you're doing is looking at what excellence is like today and asking yourself, what will excellence be like tomorrow? What you should be doing is asking yourself, what will excellence look like at 8 o'clock in the evening on the 2nd of November 2019 in Yokohama Stadium? Visualize that. And what do you have to do to be better than what excellence will be at that time? If you don't know your destination, how do you plan your journey in life? And I think that is it. Where can we get to? And then, as every good coach knows, you don't plan forwards, you plan backwards, right? If that's where you have to be on the 2nd of November, where do you have to be, say, on the 2nd of September?
Okay. In
order to make that last step?
Yeah.
And in planning back with that, you're always creating a plan that's with a particular end in mind, and it's a continuing thing. Because one of the things I said to your colleagues today is that you've got to get this into your head, that winning is not a product, it's a process. It's something you belong to. The only truly meaningful success in life is sustainable success. Okay. And what you have to do is build that concept through your team, because you want it to go beyond you, to the next generation and so on. And on the one hand, you've got to have this sense of double vision. I've got to take care of business today, the milestones, but I've got to prepare for the dream tomorrow, right? And you've got to have that sense of double vision. Whatever happens today win, lose, or whatever, did you get something out of that that's going to take us to this dream up here? And I think that kind of mentality has got to be with you all the time. If you eventually close it down, and let's face it, okay, apologies to soccer and to football and similar sports. Unfortunately, the average tenure of a manager in the Premiership or the Championship is something short of 18 months.
18 months.
Something short of 18 months.
That's
Yep.
the current 18 months.
Yep.
Wow.
And that being the case, what's happening there? Well, it's because whoever's makes the decisions about their future employment, they are looking for product all the time. Whereas if you are truly interested in that badge in your shirt and going forward, you must be constantly addressing process. And time again, you will get a coach, and it's even happening currently, where a coach understands that they're preparing for a future World Cup or World Championship, and there's stages that you have to go through in that. And if you're not winning, if the taking care of business isn't happening for you, they think that's the end of it. Off you go, and that kills the process. The fact of life is that progression towards achievement in life is never a linear process. It's at least a wavy thing, and sometimes you go backwards to go forwards. So here's a question that we should always be asking ourselves. If I want you, because this is what it's about, your skills won't change very much, but how you use them will. And that means behavior. If I ask you to learn to behave differently in the arena than you've done before, are you more likely to make a mistake than if you just behave the way you've always behaved? Yeah. You're going to make mistakes. And here's the paradox, folks. When you're making mistakes and you're honestly trying to get somewhere, it's actually a sign of progress because you're trying to learn. That's the way it is. And I think we've got to get that into people's heads. You're part of a process. And maybe boards, councils, commissions, or whatever they are up the top then, maybe we as coaches are not careful enough to explain, this is a process, this is where I'm trying to get to. Please measure me there, not on the journey the way through.
I think that's a really important point that you mentioned there for a lot of the audience watching this, is that it isn't just about the outcome, it's about the process they have to follow to actually achieve what may be the long-term outcome. Too many people, I think, are judged on immediacy rather than longevity of, as you said, you spoke about it, the brand.
And in order to make sure that we're making progress on that, I spoke today about hot and cold debriefs and things, but if you just think of the simple word of review, we've got to take time, and in competitive sport, ideally it's every 6 weeks or so on for adaptation reasons and so on. You've got to make sure that when you come to these reviews, you don't just look at the player and what the player's doing out there in the field or in the business. You've got to be able to look at the plan or the process that they're going through and review that, and also review yourself as a coach. Am I getting my words right? And so on. And related to that, and just in case I forget, because I should have mentioned this one today, is that one of the concepts in sport is what we call supercompensation or overcompensation. So I want you to imagine this. Here's a flat line there, and in this flat line, this is where you are today, right? This is your status today. I apply a stressor. It could be work, it could be a training session or whatever. And the moment you do that, the body's fatiguing. You remove the stressor and the body recovers. But it just doesn't recover to that baseline. It always goes above and then comes back down again. And that's because your body has had a shock, emotionally, physically, mentally, and it's saying, hold on a second here. We don't want that to happen again. Let's be better prepared for it. So your body is doing that. Now, the most important part of that diagram is that adaptation takes place during the recovery and not during the stimulus.
Ah, okay.
And if we don't make a point of building in proper recovery, emotional recovery, if you don't build that in, you'll become less and less competent as you go along.
So it's funny, it was a friend of mine who's here at the conference, and he posted today that he had taken some time out to go on vacation. And taking that time out of vacation actually re-energized him. And there is a point that we can't always be, I call it, at the coalface. Sometimes you've got to step back. And I remember the adage was that you're going through the jungle, people are chopping down the jungle in front of you, and then the others are behind sharpening the blades. But sometimes somebody has to climb up the tree and tell them which direction they should be hacking through the jungle. So you can't always be putting yourself under that pressure. You've got to allow that recovery, that time to actually decompress, to actually...
Decompress, great expression, military expression, but absolutely essential, right? And I just think that if you don't take that time, because what do people do? It's not working, so we better work even harder. We're under pressure, so we've got to keep going. And just as you said, because you used the expression already, so that gave me a cue to come in on this one. There's a system that we use with professional sports people out there, not just the people on the field, but the coaches themselves. Every one of us in life feels pressure, right? Whether you're the boss of the company, whether you're their staff, whether there are time pressures coming up and things are not quite working out and so on, you've got to have, there are three things you have to do. And I learned this from the All Blacks chief coach, chief psychologist, Kerry Evans, when he said, and I've modified it slightly, step back, step up, step in. Step back, what's happening here? Take stock, climb up your tree, take stock of what's happening. That gives you a bit of a perspective. You can see what's causing the issue. I know how to deal with that. So you step up, then you step in and do something about it. And I think that works whether you're in the middle of a field, of the competition ground, or whether you're in business. Because you must have gone through it yourself. Many times. Pressure's on.
Many times.
And you think, I'll just have to work harder. Yeah. It's the worst thing to do. Get back. Remember what I said. You adapt during the recovery, not during the stimulus.
I loved that. You spoke to me about that before your talk. You talked about it on the talk, and it's something that settled my brain. That is this idea of stepping back and taking time up, stepping up, and then step back in to it. I thought that was a fabulous thing. Going to ask you another question. We spoke about English rugby and the fact you'd worked with Mr. Jones, but I also believe you've maybe worked with the Scottish rugby team and Gregor Townsend. And he was a great rugby player, was he not?
Gregor was a genius player. Same time as Gavin Hastings at fullback.
Oh, he was one of my faves.
And most Scottish fans will remember that brilliant try in the Stade de France in Paris, where they linked up. Gavin and Gregor linked up. Yeah, Gregor was actually appointed as the attack coach. I think it was Andy Robbins, I think was chief coach at the time in Scotland, and he'd never coached before. And
Gregor had never coached before.
No, he'd come straight from being a world-class professional player, and he was going to come in. And he phoned me up and asked me if we could actually get together and swap notes, be his mentor, if you like, in a short period. And so for about 2 years, we met in London at the Institute of Directors, and he would share the experience that he was going through and some of the concerns he had and so on. And I remember at one point I said to him, you know, what you've got to be careful of is that you were a genius player, right? You were a genius player. And fortunately Gavin was around, another genius player, but please understand you will not have too many geniuses in front of you, right? The trouble with genius is you don't know what you're looking for, but you certainly know when it's arrived, and are we prepared to deal with that? And most of us really, in the end of the day, were not too comfortable with that, because some of them have rough edges. That's what I call rough diamonds.
Yeah. That's going to bring me on. You've brought me really nicely into something that we just spoke off camera before we came on, and I love this analogy around the rough diamond. We're going to mention a certain rugby player that I followed for the past seasons, and he's an absolute hero to me in what his drama on the pitch and how he can create opportunities where I've watched and I thought there was no opportunity there, and all of a sudden he creates Finn Russell. Finn Russell is probably at the top of his game at the present moment, but at times his history and his past, and I'll say to camera, I know nothing about Finn Russell personally. I just watch the guy and I think it's some of what he does is fabulous, or I think it's fabulous. But he's a bit of a rough diamond, and you gave that wonderful analogy around diamonds. Could you share that?
Yeah, well, and genius. There's no doubt about his genius. In fact, a lot of people in rugby would say he's one of the greatest of all time. There's no
Really?
Absolutely up there.
They
with
would
the best.
actually put him there.
Absolutely up there.
Amazing.
He has genius, and the trouble with genius is it's very difficult to know what they're going to do next, because almost by definition they'll do things differently than everyone else, and sometimes that's difficult to handle. And to be honest, I've never met or come across a superstar in any sport who doesn't have this rough edge, right? The thing you've got to remember is, as rough diamonds, they're precious beyond words. They're diamonds after all,
Yes.
right? And they've got these rough edges. You've got to be very careful which rough edge you try to knock off, because who's it hurting? And I think really when you're working with them, and it can take time for people to understand each other, knowing your people and so on. But I think you've got three choices at the end of the day when you have such a player in the team. Yeah. If the rough edge is hurting themselves, which it does from time to time, it's a player's choice what they do with that. Right? If the rough edge is hurting you as the coach, which again can happen, then it's your choice what you do with it. Right? Yeah. If the rough edge is hurting the team, then there's actually no choice. They have to go. And all credit to Gregor and to Finn. It may have taken a bit of time, but it's actually worked out now. And the genius of both people, I think is being manifest in the way Scotland are playing rugby.
Absolutely. They've just had a fabulous season. We've just come out of the last Six Nations, and bar the Italy game, the rest of it was just awesome to sit and watch.
I have to say, I can't understand why we couldn't cope with the rain. I mean,
yeah,
we're in Scotland
here,
you know.
Me.
But I have to say, I flew into to Glasgow yesterday, and the sun was out, and what a wonderful sight
Isn't
it is.
it? What
fly.
A beautiful place to come to.
I could see Ailsa Craig coming up. I could see the dots of some of the islands up the coast, and I just thought to myself, what a beautiful place this is.
Absolutely. We've had 160 odd people here at the event today. We'll have over 200 tonight at the gala dinner, and the feedback we've had and warmth towards Glasgow, the city, the people, the culture, the food. It's been really inspiring to hear people who've arrived in Glasgow for the first time and said, my God, what a wonderful place to be.
Well, I have to say, it's a little bit difficult for me to hear that, being competitive and coming from Edinburgh, but okay, I'll give you that one.
I accept that. We're going to come to the close. We're going to get, but I want one which is to share with the audience. I'm a big one around leadership. I think leadership's and I've had this question, and I think it's absolutely most appropriate one to ask you, and it is around, do you think leadership is natural and people are natural leaders, or do you think people can actually learn to be leaders, or is there a halfway house in there?
Well, I honestly believe that everyone is born with leadership qualities. Everyone. Not everyone chooses to develop them and deliver them. Right? That ends up being a choice of life and so on. Some people feel that they should just be team players, which is really valuable, let's face it. But oddly enough, and I'm open to contradiction here. I don't believe you can be a great leader if you're not also a great team player.
Interesting.
You've got to be able to understand the interaction of people. And one of the things I was saying today about connection and communication, it's like passing the ball in a game, right? And I think leaders have got to be really good with their people on this one.
Yeah.
Pele said, don't pass the ball to where somebody is, pass them to where they can get to. This means really knowing your people and taking time to know what is their potential and where can I take them to. Because in the end of the day, I think every leader should have coaching skills somewhere in there.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
To take people from, as John Wooden would say, from who they are to who they're capable of becoming. That's the journey. And that is a sign of great leadership. If you don't do that, where is the continuity going to be?
Yeah.
You know, we also spoke today about constructing your team and what you hold on to and what you don't hold on to. And I think because we're in the business of sustainable achievement, we have to have two things going on at the same time. We have to have the experienced achievers in the team, but we have to have the next generation of young people coming in at the same time. You've got to have the experience and the understanding of disciplines and stuff up there, but you've also got to have the creativity, the people who are going to say, as George Bernard Shaw said, some people see things as they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not. And that's your young people coming through. They're asking the why nots all the time.
I love that. I totally agree. We're here all here as a community, and we're also here as a community to build that next layer of generational team players, leaders. Yeah. Frank, it's been an absolute joy speaking to you today. I've taken away so much, and so has our community here. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Austen, and thanks you guys for looking in.
Okay. That's us finished for today. We're going into our gala dinner today. But what I will ask you, I would like you to subscribe, comment, or leave a like. Tell us what you think of these episodes. The more feedback we get, it's very, very much appreciated. So, from NG Gala in Glasgow, that's us. Thank you.